Good morning. We are on a Sunday, and I don't even know what the date is. I think today's September 27th. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter because, uh, the one beautiful thing about when you really live in your truth and you really are walking your spiritual journey, you'll find that the life that you've been living is not actually the most conducive to your highest and best, and you'll start to shift and change things. And that is my goal with each one of these spiritual teachings that I bring you. These ones are a little bit more formal as I'm reading from a book called Unto Thee I Grant, which is a 3,300-year-old text written by the first man in recorded history to believe in one God. And this was a channeled writing of his that was then later translated to English in the 1700s. This copy that I have is a 13th edition. It was not released to print until 1925. This copy I have is from 1976, but it is the original English translation. So if you've watched any of my other readings from this, the language is a little bit difficult, but that's what I'm here for. We're going to interpret it and see what it is that it has for us. And the reason why I'm using this particular book is because there are so many people, so many of us, you just like me, we grew up rejecting the religion that was brought to us. Or maybe we didn't. Maybe we just tried to accept it and tried to go along with it, but it never really sat well in our soul, right? In that book that we read, the one that is so popular that everybody pulls all of their scriptures from and uses it to defend themselves. That book, there's just so many contradictions in it for me that I prefer to find truths everywhere, and then I'll know what's true in the Bible, right? But the soul knows the way home. You have the GPS within you to guide you anywhere that you want to go, but you have to first want to go there. Okay? You can't go anywhere that you don't want to go. It's like getting in the car and you, let's say you need to go to the grocery store. Well, you got to drive the car to the grocery store if you want to go there. But you have to first know that you want to go to the grocery store so that you don't just drive aimlessly around. Or I don't know, maybe that's your jam. You want to drive aimlessly around until you find a grocery store and say, oh, it was heaven sent. Sure, if you want, you waste a lot of time that way. But okay, whatever. You still knew you needed to go to the grocery store, right? And even if it wasn't a roundabout way, you eventually made it there and you did it on your own. And maybe it wasn't nearly the easiest way to go, but you felt some sort of freedom in that. Being able to make your own choice and doing your own thing, even making an asinine choice, one to drive circles around the block if you want to, because it's your choice, right? And having your choice is the biggest, most important thing that you can do. Especially in today's world, there's so many people trying to tell you what to do, and the only person that knows exactly what's right for you is you. And it may go against everything everybody else is telling you, but when you feel it deep in your soul, you can't deny it, you can't ignore it, because if you do, those are the times that you have some really serious fallout and repercussions that you do not like. And it was all because you just didn't stand your ground and do what you needed to do for yourself. And that's okay. There's probably a lot of reasons behind that why you weren't able to back yourself. And that's what I'm hoping to assist you with. That's what I'm hoping that you will allow to just fall away from you. There's so much grief and sorrow and heaviness of the heart that we've been carrying. And today's teaching falls in alignment with the last two. The last one was grief. The one before that was heaviness of heart. And this one is misery. So there's got to be some sort of theme for all of us going on right now. There is a collective dark night of the soul, and we must face our own stuff individually so that our individual lives can change, and so the life of the collective can change. As we change ourselves, we change the world. You ready? Feeble and sufficient as thou art, O man in good, frail and consistent as thou art in pleasure, yet there is a thing which thou art strong and unshaken. Its name is misery. One thing that we have in common, I'm holding on to, is misery. And we can see that I personally have experienced that myself, and I'm sure that you've experienced that too. You know, we're really good at holding on to misery, but not so good at holding on to some of the other things. It is the character of thy body, the prerogative of thy flesh. In thy thoughts alone it resideth. Without these there is nothing of it. And behold, what is its source but thine own physical passions? So this is saying that misery is a thing of the flesh. It's something that happens by being here on earth, right? Because it's the physical things that happen to us, the things that happen to us in this world that bring us that misery, right? We didn't come into the world miserable, even as babies. We didn't come in here miserable, even if we're screaming and disgruntled and all of those things. There's a lot more going on. It's not that we came here unhappy. It's that there are other things in this physical world causing that unhappiness, and even a baby can feel that. One thing that I realized, or that I noticed when I had my children, the first two, I had one that was, the normal way. The second one was a cesarean. In both instances, they took my baby from me like immediately, right? They had to in a C-section. But my third baby, that did not happen. I was able to, deliver the back end of my baby. I literally pulled him out and pulled him close to me, and I was the first person to touch him, feel him, hug him, and he did not cry. And it scared me. I'm like, isn't he supposed to be crying? And the doctor just giggled and he said, well, he hasn't left you. Why would he cry? Just some food for thought there. Who gave thee these physical passions? Gave thee also soul to subdue them. Exert it, and thou shalt trample them under thy feet. So who gave you all of these things about you? Who gave you these physical passions? And who gave you the ability to subdue these things within you that are drawing you from the physical world? You feel those things, right? Like somebody tries to bait you into an argument, but you resist, right? Why do you have the ability to do those things? Why is this all here, right? Thine entrance into the world, is it not sorrowful? We just talked about that, right? The babies, the way that they come in, it's really chaotic. Our modern medicine, and this book was written so long ago, I didn't even knew then. The way that things are in this world today, it starts off very traumatic for all of us. And as adults, we're having to go and sift through all of this trauma that we've had over the course of our lives. It started when we were young, and then we were trained, learned, and conditioned to create more of that in our lives because it was all that was around us. Thy destruction, is it not glorious? Lo, men adorn the instruments of death with golden gems and wear them above their garments. Ooh, right? She who begetteth man hideth her face, but she who killeth 1,000 is honored. So even at that time, people were honored for the killing of people, but understanding a person, like from the soul, was really looked down upon, and it kind of is still now, right? People are fighting for fighting to be heard and to be understood and to be seen, right? And we're literally right in the middle of this. We want to be seen. We don't want people killing each other, but yet that's what's happening. Know thou, notwithstanding, that in this is error. Custom cannot alter the nature of truth, neither can the opinion of many destroy justice. The glory and shame are misplaced. So no matter what we say things are, we know, and the truth of the matter is that we cannot alter the nature of truth. And no matter how many people believe that war and killing are righteous and just, it really isn't. That's not how we get justice. Glory and shame are misplaced. So the truth of the matter is not how we are actually living, right? The truth of the matter is that every soul deserves an opportunity to level themselves up, and there are some souls here that are a danger to themselves and to others. But it is not okay to kill them. And this is a really, I feel some people are like, well, what about pedophiles? What about rapists? What about murderers? All of these things. Well, at the end of the day, like if we take a step back and we remove this human flesh and we just look at the soul of the being, that committed those heinous acts, they are hurting just as much as the hurt that they've caused to others. This is why they cause that hurt. And we will never be able to shift and change it if we keep smiting it and eradicating it. And most of us are not in a position to really do anything about those bigger level things, but we are in a position to do it for ourselves. And as we heal ourselves, we heal the world. The law of attraction demands like energy attracts like energy. So if the vast majority of us on this planet are not rapists or not pedophiles or not murderers and are actually living in our truths and our highest and best, then those people who are the rapists, the pedophiles, and the murderers are not going to be able to do those things for very long without feeling so highly convicted that they themselves will fall to their knees and beg for forgiveness and do everything that they can for reparation to make things right. And they will do it from the place that it needs to be done. But if we keep jailing them and we keep killing them and we keep punishing them, then we are no better than they. We are creating more of that which they are putting out into the world, and we're stirring up more of it. And that's why it keeps happening. That's why the powers that be have the system that it is because it creates chaos and it causes problems for us on the underbelly, so to speak, that we have a hard time just dealing with our own daily life, much less trying to think about the rapists, the pedophiles, and the murderers that are running around on the streets and that are probably in the political offices that are condemning us all to this, whatever it is that we're living in our lives that we don't like, and then we feel like we can't get out of it. But our power does not lie in changing the things around us. That's why nothing you've ever done to this point has worked, is because you haven't made the shifts in here to create the shifts out here. All right, and I am with you on that. There are things that I have not wanted to do that would really improve my life, but for whatever reason, I'm holding on to some grudge or grievance about it. I'm just still pissed off, angry, or sad, right? But I will tell you that my daily commitment to reading these, whether I videotape them for you or not, and my commitment to just living in my truth, even though I'm not able to do that at every moment, I have noticed an immediate difference just in the same day, and especially within just a few days of continuing to do this. And if I have a day where I slack off and I don't take time in the morning to just close my eyes and just thank God for everything, and I'll tell you, it's not even a really specific prayer a lot of the times, it's just some deep, deep gratitude. Because there isn't anything else I can do. I've tried every other kind of prayer, but this is the only one that seems to really work, is I will pull up everything that's making me anxious, everything that's making me sad, everything that's making me feel some sort of way I don't want to feel, and I pull it all up and I say, I just don't know what to do. Like, here it all is, just help me, just show me the way. And I really mean that. And you have to really mean it, and you'll know when you really mean it and when you don't. And things shift like this, and it is insane, the things that happen. So let's continue. There is but one way for man to be created. There are 1,000 by which he may be destroyed. There is no praise or honor to him who giveth being to another, but triumphs and empire are the rewards of murder. So, wow, and even today, we celebrate our births, but they're not really what they should be, right? We have birthday parties, but there's so much going on around the baby that isn't really about the baby. There's the celebration isn't nearly as much, as far as the neighborhood is concerned, right? But I'm sure, people have family and friends and things like that, but it's not like it's globally celebrated that each sort of baby is born. There's nothing on TV or the news or in the newspaper or anywhere that says, look at all these wonderful babies that were born today. Let's celebrate each and every one of them. You don't hear any of that, right? You just get that news through your Facebook. But what does the mainstream media report? What do the newspapers report? What do you see everywhere? Mass murder, right? It's even in our video games. There are children's play, which, it's almost everything, in our movies and everything is conditioned, everything is around murder. This book was written 3,300 years ago, and it's still the same today. What the fuck is going on? Right? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. Not enough people on an individual basis did the thing for themselves. All right? Yet he who hath many children hath as many blessings, and he who hath taken away the life of another shall not enjoy his own. That's the truth. While the savage curseth the birth of his son, and the blesseth the death of his father, doth he not call himself a monster? Enough of evil is allotted unto man, but he maketh more while he lamenteth it. So, I think what this is saying here is, while the savage curses, it says the savage curses the birth of his son. So I would say that means that this savage is somebody who doesn't want to have children, right? Like he just ends up getting somebody pregnant, and he's, he's like all pissed off, but then he blesses the death of his father. Like it's not like a joyous thing, but it's like you honor the death of somebody who's going on, right? Enough of evil is allotted to man, but he maketh it more while he lamenteth it. So as we, there's enough here that we have to deal with, and then our dwelling on it makes it worse, and it causes us to do things we wouldn't normally do. The greatest of all human ills is sorrow. Too much of this thou art born unto. Add not unto it by thine own perverseness. So just coming into this world and being born here and into your family, you already took on a lot of sorrow and sadness, things that were there long before you got there. Some families are even carrying generations of sorrow, be it from slave days or just like old abuse patterns that went on for generations. And that's why it keeps going on, is because that's what everybody is taught. And so you are the person that's going to break all of those generational what do we want to call them? I don't want to call them curses, because they're not curses. It's more generational lessons that need to be broken, or generational lessons that have run their course. And you are the one that stops it. And what happens is, when you make that change in yourself, you make it for everybody, all your brothers and sisters if you have any, all of your children if you have any, and your grandchildren if you have any, and everybody directly above you. So you're going to break it for your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and everything. The only line that you aren't going to get are the sidelines, like your parents' siblings, your grandparents' siblings, things like that. So there is a little bit that is not going to be able to get included with that, just because of the nature. You're related to your aunt and your uncle, and maybe you share blood, but there's no direct line, right? You have to go up to your parents and then over. Anybody you have a direct line to, when you shift yourself and you heal these things within you, then you heal it for all of them as well. And it may take some time to shift, and if you live with them, then you'll see how things shift and how you'll actually help them shift, just because you have shifted and you're handling things different. And children are the quickest to jump on board. It might seem a little bit hard at first, because they're going to give you the most resistance up front, but it is resistance like a piece of paper. It's so flimsy. You just persist enough in that calm, intuitive knowing, and you're speaking from your soul, that child will listen. Even if at first they don't, you just have to stay the course a little bit longer than they do. And, it's like you don't have to, run away from the bear. You just got to run faster than your friend. Kind of like that theory, but a little bit, a lot more kind, right? And I'll tell you too, your children really do want to be on that high vibing, feel good thing. They've just simply learned energetically and unconsciously, just like you did, to pick up all of these things. So they're reflecting back to you the things in you that you also would like to shift in yourself. Okay. So let's see. Grief is natural to the mortal world, and is always about thee, right? Like we have that feeling. It's here for a reason. Pleasure is a guest, and visiteth thee but by thy invitation. So you can have pleasure, but you got to invite it in, right? Usually we seek out the pleasure, or maybe we find ourselves in a situation where pleasure is at hand and we choose it, right? Use well thy mind, and sorrow shall be passed behind thee. Be prudent, and the visits of joy shall remain long with thee. So the more that we choose the joy, the less the sorrow is able to get in, and it is a choice. And so when we're not making those choices for joy, that's when the sorrow sneaks in. And once it sneaks in, we have a hard time asking it to leave, right? We just give it an audience, and eventually it starts to overtake us again, and then we go under and we're like, what the hell? Like, I thought I had already learned from this, right? But the part at the very beginning where we're not choosing that joy, where we're allowing that sorrow to step in, this is the moment that we're looking for. Every part of thy body is capable of sorrow, but few and narrow are the paths that lead to delight that equal the joy of the soul. Right? Like, isn't it a lot easier to get sad than it is to get happy? Pleasures can be emitted only singly, but pains rush in 1,000 at a time. As the blaze of straw fadeth as soon as it is kindled, so passeth away the brightness of joy, and thou knowest not what is become of it. Well, I think that speaks for itself. Sorrow is invited frequently, pleasure rarely. Pain cometh of itself, delight must be purchased. Grief is unmixed, but joy wanteth not its alloy of bitterness. We're so used to inviting this sorrow, this pain, and this grief that we don't even know how to invite pleasure in. We must purchase our delight, right? Like, we've got to pay for food, we've got to pay for entertainment, we've got to pay for whatever. Hold on just a second. Yeah, baby? I'm making a video.
Oh.
What's up?
Can you do the password, please? Can you do the password so I can play on
alright.
this?
Okay, well, I'm live with the peoples.
Sorry.
I don't know what happened there. Here. Okay. Shut the door behind you, baby. Thank you. I don't think the phone unlocked all the way. I think it opens at 10 o'clock, and he's just going to have to wait for that. All right. So most of the things that we bring into our lives, right? Delight, joy, pleasure, like all of those things, we're paying for them in a lot of ways, right? So even if it's not money, right? So even if we're not going out there and spending money like shopping and food and these things, there's still things that we have to purchase. Maybe we're using emotional currency for them, right? So like, we're texting somebody that we know we shouldn't be talking to, but they are giving us some sort of feel good in response, right? Like maybe some playful texts, or an internet conversation or something like that, right? But it's something that you really wouldn't necessarily choose to do in the long term. Like, it's just a short-term thing, and maybe afterwards you're just like, man, I really wish I hadn't done that. Even if it wasn't like the most awful sort of thing, but you just have some sort of feeling afterwards that it isn't leaving you fulfilled, right? As the soundeth health is perceived, is less perceived than the lightest malady, so the highest joy touches us less deep than the smallest sorrow. So that would indicate that joy is our given state, right? And so you aren't able to feel it so much because it is who you are, but the pain is more abundant because it's drawing our attention to something that needs to be shifted in our lives, right? And that's how we know, but we've just been taught to like cower from it and run from it and fear it instead of going, oh, ow, what is that? You know, and then taking care of it that way, just like a splinter in your foot, you would just pull it out, right? You wouldn't just stand there and go, oh, I've got a splinter in my foot. He's back for the phone. Oh, he shut the door. Okay. We are enslaved by anguish. We often fly from pleasure. When we purchase it, cost us it not more than it is worth. That's what we were just talking about, right? You have an experience or a situation that you do because you're feeling some kind of way, and then afterwards you're just like, oh man, I really didn't want to do it, you know, and then you like beat yourself up afterwards. Reflection is the business of man. A sense of his state is his first duty. But who remembereth himself in joy? Is it not in mercy, then, that sorrow is allotted unto us? So it's our responsibility to make sure that we are checking ourselves to see what our state is. And it says, "Is not mercy then that sorrow is allotted to us?" It does give us an opportunity to look at things and an opportunity to shift and change things that we wouldn't otherwise have, right? If we weren't having those feelings, then we would just go on about life as we are because there's no reason to shift anything. Everything is great, right? But these moments can allow us to shift in ways that bring in even greater things and things that you've really been wanting but have been held up because of some other situation, right? Man foreseeth the evil that is to come. He remembereth when it is past. He considereth not that the thought of affliction woundeth deeper than the affliction itself. So when something bad happens to us, we tend to remember that a lot more than the good things, right? And every time we remember it, it just drives the knife in deeper and it twists it and it actually makes it worse than it really was in the moment that we experienced it. Because every time we remember something, we're only remembering the last time we remembered it. And so if you've been thinking about something a whole lot, you've got thousands and thousands of each time that you remembered, and so things are going to start changing. It's like that game we used to play when we were kids, telephone. You sit in a circle with 30 people, one person will whisper something to the next person, and by the time everybody whispered all the way around, it got back to the original person who said something, and they said something like, "I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich," and it comes back around, and it's like, I went to the store yesterday and bought Cheetos. It can get totally changed like that. So this is what happens when we remember things. And so this is why a past memory actually might cause you more pain than what was actually present in the moment that it happened, because you're compounding the pain every time that you remember it. And so you're driving that knife in deeper, and it gets harder to pull out the longer you leave it there, because then it starts to seem like it's a part of you and that pain just is supposed to be there. When in actuality, it's not. It's just that the pain has become so loud you can't remember not having the pain. And therefore you get so comfortable in it that when it does come time to change and actually that pain to be removed, you don't want it to go because you're so used to it. It's become a part of who you are. You're now so identified with it that you may have developed even some physiological symptoms as a result of it. Like, I know a lot of people who have developed autoimmune diseases and things like fibromyalgia because they've run away from this pain in such a way that they've completely disconnected themselves from the physical world, and their fibromyalgia, whatever autoimmune pain is happening, is a call to come back into your body, and you're refusing. You hear that? Because that's true for me too. All right? Like, I can say that with 100% certainty because that's what happened to me. I ran away from all this stuff. I didn't develop fibromyalgia, but I got an autoimmune disease at some point that really did a number on me because I was running away from my life, and I was running see it? It's even hard, like getting my throat chakra cleared. There was so much that I just shut myself up about that it was hard for me to shake all of these things. It's taken me literal years to get through this and to be able to see this for what it is and to not feel like I have to live with that knife in my chest and in my back. And I probably had like 42 of them all stabbed in me. But I didn't know that I didn't have to carry them. It's taken a long journey, and it actually has caused me to realize what my calling is on this planet, because I've gone into so much pain that the only way that you can leave that much pain is in God's arms. It's not even walking hand in hand with God, because you're not strong enough to do that when you're in that deep, dark space. When you're so miserable that you can't pull yourself out of it, how the hell are you going to walk? No, you don't even have the belief in that. You've got to let God pick you up and remind you that you can walk. And then when he sets you down and holds your hand, you don't only walk, but you skip and you jump and you fly. You skip the running altogether, because the what that you've been seeking is finally there. And the seeking, the searching is over. And even though that misery and stuff still comes up, it's almost kind of fun now, because it starts to come up and you're like, God, here it is again. And even if you're like, wherever you're at, like, you can just sit into that, and it just,
It's magic. I can't, there's so many things I can describe to you. I can teach you how to talk to the dead, but I cannot tell you how God shifts these things within you. I don't know how it happens, but I do know that it happens. Think not of thy pain except when it is upon thee, and thou shalt avoid what would hurt thee. So stop thinking about all the shit that hurts you when you're not in the middle of the moment that it's hurting you. Like if you're not in the middle of the conversation with a person that is hurting, like hurtful, it's after that conversation. Don't take yourself back to the pain and bring it all up. It's hard not to think about those things, but you need to take a step back and look at the facts of the situation. One thing that I tell all of my clients and all of my students is when you're having a really hard emotional time, you need to step back and look at that as if it were somebody else. Put me in that position. Like, what if it were me? What would you tell me to do? What would you recommend for me to do? Or your best friend or somebody else that you care about? Like, what would you recommend to them if they were in the situation that you were in and you have to pull everything out of it? Right? You have to pull all of your emotional feelings about that particular person and things and really just get a broader perspective of what is actually happening in the situation. And then you can see what it is that you're doing to slight yourself in it, which is why you feel the way you feel about it and you want the situation to end or stop or go away. When you see how you've slighted yourself in the situation, then you'll also understand how you've slighted the other person involved as well. If you are not acting in your highest and best, then it is not helping anybody else. It is not the highest and best for anybody else either. Being a martyr and sacrificing yourself is not a noble thing. God does not want that. That's why you are stuck. That's why you can't get up and out of that. Okay? And it's not a selfish thing to put yourself first when you're truly seeking your highest and best, because what is in your highest and best is always in the highest and best of others. So think of your children. Your children want to, have ice cream for every meal every day, but that's just not the right thing for them, and you know that. But yet they don't care. They're going to argue with you or whatever, and you've got to stand your ground, but not in a mean way. It's just that you know the truth. Yes, ice cream is delicious and we can have some of it, but we can't have it every day because it will actually kill us. It'll be very harmful and it's not good for us. And so we understand that and we can just stand our ground without even getting mad. It's just because the child doesn't understand, right? And so for us, we are that child at times where we don't understand. When we're frustrated, frustration just means you don't have all the pieces. And that's where God comes in, and that's the parent that we have to rely on. That's the void that we keep seeking. That's the desire that we keep wanting to be fulfilled. Is that knowing that we have somebody there that we can check in with about those moments and know that we're getting the love, guidance, and support that we truly want. The thing is, though, is that because it's always ever present, it's hard to feel it, to hear it, because it's not separate from you. It's always going all the time, just like your heart is beating all the time. It's not until you tune into it or there's some sort of extraneous circumstance that you are aware of it, right? Like maybe you notice your heart is pounding because you just exerted yourself, and your heart is racing, but under normal circumstances, you are not aware of anything that's happening within your body until there's something abnormal happening, right? The same is true when you are wanting divine guidance and support, is that it's always there, it's always happening, it's always being given to you. And so when you go to look for it, you don't know what the hell you're looking for. And so then you think that nothing is going on. You think you're not getting any support or any guidance until something major happens in your physical world and slaps you right in the face. And then you go, oh, well, maybe some stuff has actually been happening and I just haven't been aware of it. He who weepeth before he needeth, weepeth more than he needeth. And why? But that he loveth weeping. Wow. He who weepeth before he needeth, weepeth more than he needeth. You cry before you need to cry. You're always going to cry more than you need to cry. And there's some part of us that just must love feeling that way, right? The stag weepeth not until the spear is lifted up against him, nor do the tears of the beaver fall till the hounds are ready to seize him. Man anticipateth death by the apprehension of it, and the fear is greater misery than the event itself. So at the end of the day, we basically just psych ourselves out. to make things out to be a lot worse than they really truly are. And in the moment, you aren't going to be able to understand that. But now, in this moment where you've just been listening and taking things in, you are in a calm, centered place. If you've been watching this whole video with me, by the way. And you are in a state where you can understand these things and you can ponder on them and take some time after we part ways here to really think about how this applies to your life and how you can really utilize it. Because when those moments pop up, and they will, then you'll be prepared for them. You aren't going to be taken under nearly as deep because you're aware that whatever moment is happening, is it really happening first of all, or are you just, like anticipating it and making it worse before it ever actually happens? Or is it after the situation and now you're doing the same thing, but now you just have like well, it's real, it happened, but the more you keep tossing in your mind, you make it bigger and bigger. With these tools, those things will happen to you less and less and less until eventually you'll be aware of what you're feeling before you react, and then you'll be able to make a choice, and then you'll respond to things rather than react. Even if somebody's coming at you in a way that's really rude or disrespectful, then you'll understand where it is you are and be able to respond to that accordingly. Okay, so I hope that this was a wonderful insight for you. And if you really did enjoy this one, the last two that I did, absolutely need to go watch those because they go very much hand in hand with misery. Yesterday was sorrow and grief, or joy and grief, something like that. And the day before was heaviness of heart. So there's definitely something in here for all of us. And with the way that the world is going and the collective energies and things, it is going to get darker here before the dawn. And so the only thing that we can really do is focus on ourselves and setting a super solid spiritual foundation from which we can grow. And the thing is that your super solid foundation is going to look different than everybody else's. But for every single one of us, the very first thing that you have to do is get solid in your relationship with the Almighty. Without that, none of the rest of these things matter. It doesn't matter how much you pray. It doesn't matter how much spiritual text you read. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how much you do anything. If you aren't taking the time to really, truly build that relationship with your Creator, and it's going to look different for each and every one of us. But it's like any other relationship that you're trying to build with somebody, right? You have to give them the opportunity to show up for you. You have to give them the opportunity to be there for you. If you're feeling some kind of way and you're home by yourself, like, you've got to call that person and, share what's going on with you so that you can be love guided and supported. And the same thing is with the Almighty. The one part that we're having a hard time with is being able to hear those responses in the moment. Okay. And because we've got so many feelings going on, we're feeling all sorts of whatever it is, like, you aren't going to be able to hear the answer because you're not in a state of receiving it. You're in a state of giving up all of these things to God. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these moments whenever you can to just tell God that you don't know and you accept help. God, I have no idea what's going on right now, but I know you do, and I know that you can help me, and I accept your help, and I'm willing to do whatever it is that you ask me to do. And I will know what you are asking me because I will feel it in here, and I will feel like I can't not do it. I will feel like I am letting myself down if I don't. Okay? These are the intuitive pushes. This is how God speaks to you. Okay? And you're not going to be able to hear it in words all the time. Maybe sometimes. The better you get, the clearer it gets, and you can actually have a conversation with God just as clear as, I can have with a spirit. I mean, it really is that wonderfully clear. But you are the one that has to open the doorway to that. You're the one that has to be ready. You're the one that has to fully accept it. And being ready, you aren't going to feel ready. You're just going to tell God that you're ready. And you're going to repeat that over and over. And you're really going to genuinely surrender and just keep going about your daily life the best that you can. And you're going to notice that you're going to get these intuitive hunches. You're going to know what to do in that moment, and you didn't even ask. That, my friend, is your divine guidance. That is your divine intervention. It is coming from within you. And if you listen to that in every moment, I promise you, no matter what things look like, you are going to come out always smelling like roses. Maybe, you might look a little dirty. Get a little dirt on the hands. Come on, like, we're growing a garden here. We got to plant some flowers and things. You're bound to get a little bit dirty. But at the end of the day, you're happy about it, and everything is wonderful and joyful, and you understand what it is. It's just going through the times when you don't and being willing to surrender those, that you will find that you were never alone, and that even though you have no idea what's going on, it's all fine. Even though you have no idea how things are going to get done, it's all fine, because you've given it up and you have followed that intuitive guidance wherever it leads. And how can you do any more than that? Like, that's your highest and best. Like, that's literally the best that you can do, is follow that intuitive guidance. So if you're doing that to the best of your ability, even if you aren't successful each and every time, it is the effort, the genuine effort that you put in, that is moving the mountains with your Creator. Because this is a co-creation, this life that you have. This is why you can't completely surrender to God and tell God to just do it for you. And this is why you can't do it all by yourself. You were never meant to. You were meant to co-create with the divine, and you have so many wonderful times. But just now you want to do it on purpose. Now you know that the way of the world is not the way of the soul. Now you know that the things that you have been told are actually not true, and there's a whole way and a whole brand new thing out there for you, and it's time to find it. And this is the way. No matter what happens, no matter what you do, no matter what you experience, if there's nothing else you ever watch from me or anybody else, and you just go off into the world, and just go do the thing, you follow that intuition, and you will be perfectly fine, safe, sound. And not only all of that, but you will have such a wonderfully joyous, abundant roller coaster of a ride, knowing that every moment, even in the darkness, that there is a much bigger purpose for things that is just waiting to be revealed to you, so that you can take it and transmute it and come through it out the other side even better, bigger, more vast, with more depth and more solidity in your soul that you won't be able to experience any other way, and you won't be able to explain it to anybody. But when you meet somebody else who's come through one of those tunnels and out the other side, you recognize each other. You can see it in our eyes. We recognize each other. And it's not the only time we're going to go through that dark tunnel and squeeze out the other side. This is something that we're going to be doing from everything that I know, forever, because our souls are eternal, right? But we're just constantly going to be elevating. So why not make it fun? Why not get into the swing of things? Even though we're here on Earth, like, we're still going to be doing this regardless of where we are, whether we're on Earth or somewhere else. The cool thing about Earth is that things are a little bit more dense. They go a little bit slower. So there's a lot more enjoyment to be had as long as we allow it. All right? I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here with me. And if you haven't joined the Magical Club, please join me. We're going to be doing some really neat things. I've got some plans, and God has given me some guidance about some things that we need to do over there. So you'll keep being able to catch my teachings over here, because I can stream them live and also put them over there in the group. But I absolutely encourage you, if you're looking for a spiritual home and you want some like-minded others who are on their spiritual journey and wanting to do it their own way, that's what we're doing over in the Magical Club. All right? I love you so much. Enjoy your Sunday. And remember, you are always loved, guided, and supported. It's up to you to let it in.